Hi, everyone. I have a really wonderful guest here, and her name is Joyce Meng. She has like a really incredible YouTube channel. She brought together a community of people who are interested in personality typology and being able to help different types find what their deeper meaning is. So thank you for being on my show, Joyce.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. So today, Joyce has a very fascinating topic, and it's on relationships. Like, what are we looking for in a relationship? What kind of balance are we looking for? So, Joyce, would you like to share with us your thoughts here?
Yeah, I believe that human beings have two fundamental needs. And the first one is the need to be seen. And so we really want to be understood. This is why we might like people who are similar to us. We always talk about during the hiring process, sometimes managers will hire people just like them. And you'll see maybe parents will like kids that resemble them too. And that's because on
Hmm.
some level, this phenomenon helps the person feel more understood. Because if someone is like you, they actually understand your thought process.
Right.
And we all worship gods in the sense that we all worship our way of thinking, our way of feeling, and we kind
Hmm.
of want the world to like that or respect that or to accept that or to see it as valuable. And when someone
Hmm.
else has it, we automatically feel a little more valued around us because it's like,
Right.
yeah, that way of operating is the best. That's why I operate that way.
Right. It's like that
And so
that person gets me.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And that's why we get along better with people who share similar interests with us,
Mm.
or we're able to find a point of connection, a common ground with them. That's something that a charisma technique that people use. And it
Right.
works because people feel understood and they feel like you're like them. So you must get them on a deeper level,
Right.
that you are able to comprehend a part of their essence on some level. And so, for people to truly feel valued, they actually have to feel like you see them. And so, if you value them, but you don't even know who they are, then you're not actually valuing them. You're either valuing the idea of them or you're valuing something that is not them. And
Right.
so, oftentimes feeling not good enough comes from you don't have someone in your environment who can be able to see you, and they're not able to appreciate what you have to offer the world, because sometimes we learn to value ourselves through other people valuing us first. There's the adage that says you have to love yourself before others can love you. But
Yeah.
I would say that's not always true. I would say sometimes it's easier to love yourself when you have had that reflected back in your environment,
Right. So you
which
see,
is
really
why,
see like the value of the sense of unconditional regard, because this is something that a lot of people feel like it is lacking. Like this, feel like their own worth is conditional, and when they're able to discover that and model that, they have that model to them, then they're able to really see the value in themselves too.
absolutely. And when you're not given that, you learn shame. So
Mm.
it's like, oh, because love is conditional, I might do things that make me lose love. And I feel shame when that happens. Because
Mhm.
shame is not something you're born with, it's something that you learn as how people respond to you, that there might be something deficient from you that is not worthy of unconditional love.
Mhm.
I think
Right.
that unconditional love is so important because it gives us the space to take larger risks that help us grow. So it's almost like if we don't have the stable ground of understanding and love and acceptance, it's hard for us to meet the second fundamental need, which is to be challenged and to grow.
Excellent. So
And
it's almost like when you're saying this, I kind of imagine you have like a rock climbing gym and you have all the security equipment in place and you can trust that you won't die. And as a result, you're willing to challenge yourself to take risks.
yeah. And you need both to feel fully alive.
Hmm.
Otherwise, your soul is going to feel half dead, because we need to keep growing, because there's a part of the human condition that wants to self-actualize no matter who you are.
Hmm.
And if you're not given permission to do that, you're always going to feel like something's missing from your life.
Right.
And you won't really know how to put a label to it because it's more of an intangible need, but it's going to eat away at you slowly. It is these micro wants in you, or this micro need that you'll feel panging against you. And eventually it'll accumulate so much that it'll become harder to ignore. It'll turn out to be self-sabotaging behavior. When you don't
Mm.
acknowledge your needs as real needs, your body will make you acknowledge it.
It'll catch up to you.
It'll catch up to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you see like there's importance to, would you say it's a balance between this, between understanding and challenge?
Yeah, it depends on your phase of life.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can get that sense of understanding just from yourself. So let's say someone grew up with a really loving mother and they learned from their mom is that they are lovable no matter what the world does to them. They are
Mm-hmm.
intrinsically lovable. And so they don't need to be understood by anyone anymore because they have come to the truth that they are a love worthy person. And so you don't need that sense of understanding to come externally. You can actually generate it from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Although it is easier to know how to do that from having that model from someone else loving you first.
Right.
I always believe that catalysts make things easier, even if they are just inspiring it and then you're taking on the load from there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that once you get that stable sense of, okay, it doesn't matter if anyone understands me, but I understand me, or other people understand me, you can then go, hey, I want to grow. I don't want to live a stagnant life. I think when people don't get their growth needs met, they can settle a lot and not know that they're doing it
Mm-hmm.
because they might not feel like it's realistic to aim towards things that make them happy. And
Right.
so this can be seen in people who go into romantic relationships to fill up a lonely spot in their life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not necessarily a relationship that's ideal for them, or it's not the most compatible one. So I
Hmm.
think
Can
growing
mhm.
or giving yourself permission to do that is important. Otherwise, you'll settle and not even know you're doing it.
Can you give me an example, like how would that manifest in a relationship, like seeking such relationships out of desperation?
Because you're trying to do it to fill out a need of wanting to feel love or acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And so you meet it in this convoluted way of
Mm-hmm.
getting into relationships too quickly.
Right.
Yeah. And then you sabotage your need to grow because your need to feel safe and love takes that
Prior
precedence.
precedence. What do you say? Like a lot of people might be wondering, well, isn't challenging kind of a bit contradictory to understanding like challenging is about like kind of pushing someone or trying to being able to give them like a critique of some sorts.
Yeah, and that's where the sense of feeling confident in your own self-worth is important to feel
Hmm.
challenged. Otherwise, everything will feel like a personal attack
Right. I
because
see.
you'll think everything is a question of your worth if you don't have a stable sense of it.
So what do you advise someone to say that they grow up in an environment where the environment was very critical for them and they don't feel like they have a lot of self-value? What would you say to them? Like how could they develop such a value even if they don't have it modeled?
How I dealt with it was I didn't have that kind of unconditional love in my life. So what I did is
Mm,
I imagined a world where that existed. So I
mm,
could imagine a reality where it was possible that I am lovable.
hmm.
And I was like, I'm not that special. If there's someone like me out there, there's also another person in the world who is similar and they will value me. And so being secure that you're just in an environment locally that doesn't appreciate you and that it's not a universal truth.
Right.
It's reassuring. So I would really recommend finding your tribe. That's why I always beat a dead horse with this quote, and it's find people who speak your language so you don't spend a lifetime translating your soul. If you
Hmm.
want to develop a sense of self love, you really have to be surrounded by people who are able to appreciate the things that you offer to the world. Otherwise, you'll be gaslit and you'll always think that you're not valuable, but you're really
Right.
just the ugly duckling. And
Right.
so you're going to go your whole life thinking you're just an ugly or defective version of a duck rather than recognizing the swan that you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're saying you're encouraging people to see that um, perhaps they're living in a box that is placed over them, and they could be able to live a life outside of the box. And are people out there that are your people, or who are or caring and their understanding. And when you could find that place, and not only do you develop your self worth and value, but you could start to grow too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's good to have a community of people who understand you.
Mm-hmm.
The highest quality of life is linked to a very good community.
Right.
So if someone is having self-worth issues, it's something worth looking into. Where you spend your time, the communities that you're surrounded with, or the relationships that you spend the most time with, do they appreciate your essence, or do they subtly make backhanded compliments about you, or just say things that
Mm.
are uncalled for, that criticize who you are?
Mm-hmm.
And it's finding out, does your environment fundamentally appreciate you?
How would someone know if they lived a life where they they lived in a critical environment?
You will know that because you will hate yourself.
Mm.
It's because self-hate isn't something that you're innately born with. It comes from, so you hear someone's voices in the external world and then
Mm-hmm.
you internalize it. So when you say, oh, you look fat, or oh,
Mm.
I wonder if the things I say are boring to other people, you're not innately born thinking those thoughts. It's someone in the external world suggested that to you at some point, and
Mm.
it was sticky and it stayed in your brain
I see. Yeah.
because your survival saw it as something important to keep on. It's like, oh, this is a threatening comment. Maybe it's true.
Mm.
But that's a sign. If you have self-hating thoughts, it might originate from people who are in your environment. And that might be a cue that you've been in toxic environments.
Understood. Okay, so now kind of moving on to the other part about challenging ourselves. So how do we get from that place where, we find that unconditional love or in within ourselves for ourselves to a point of being able to challenge ourselves?
It's to be okay with rejection and to not take it personally. It's
Mm.
like, oh, if the person in front of me doesn't love me, I am lovable to the right people. So it's not placing your worth just solely on the specific circumstances that have hurt you. It's like, it's being able to let go of things that don't see your value, not trying to impress everyone. I don't know, it's having this innate confidence that you have value, and all it takes is just the right environment to be able to
Mm-hmm.
notice it.
Yeah. So it's not like kind of you're able to face external pressures when the pressure is not within. Like when,
Yeah.
hmm,
Yeah, you're able to take things less personally.
I
And
see.
so oftentimes when we're in toxic environments, it can cause psychological bruising. And
Mm-hmm.
so every little thing after that can feel a little bit personal because you're already covered in bruises. And what happens when you hit a bruise on a bruised person? They get hurt everywhere. And so
Right.
people who don't experience unconditional love sometimes are hypersensitive to things that are not personal at all. And you know that you've been starting to love yourself more when things that you used to take personally, you no longer do, because you start to heal from the bruises that you've taken from
Yeah.
circumstances in life.
You could start to feel what the difference is. Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful. How would a world look like if people could live by this principle where they could be able to discover their self-worth and also challenge themselves?
Mm. It would be really great because we could be growing together. It could be a very win-win scenario where
Hmm.
I think what type is beautiful for is recognizing neurodiversity.
Hmm.
And sometimes
Let's
when we
talk about
don't,
personality types, right?
yeah,
Hmm.
but when we don't approach situations with love and understanding, what can happen is neurodiscrimination. And so we
Mm.
actually devalue approaches that are not like ours. And so
Right.
I think if we come with a more understanding framework and one that allows people to grow together, we actually stop the cognitive forms of discriminating against each other. And
Mm.
we start to work together and we start to become more one in this weird woo woo way. And I think that we're able to become the best versions of ourselves.
Hmm.
Of course, this is very ideal, right? You're asking someone who's like, wow, I just wish everyone would just sing Kumbaya and really, really realize the innate value in each other. So,
Well, I see. It's like this is certainly like a really beautiful vision. At the same time, could we really say the way that we're living now to be practical? Like we're kind of have the systems of conditional love that we have in place. Does it really achieve an ends that's really beneficial to us? And that's really what it comes down to, right? And you
yeah.
just outlined something that's very reasonable, something that is very noticeable that when people could find a sense of that security within themselves through community, through others who demonstrate that, you can really see how people grow.
Yeah. And it's a powerful instrument to changing the world. And
Hmm.
so I know it sounds really idealistic, but I really think it's possible. I think
Hmm.
that when we believe in other people, we give them an image to live up to, and
Right.
people want to strive towards that image.
Right.
Whereas sometimes we're in environments where people underestimate us and they give us an image to live down to. And it's like, oh, I
Mm.
expect very little of you.
Mm.
And those are environments where we may not feel understood and we may never be able to see the true value we provide
Right.
to the world when people see us in a totally different way than how we would like to see
This
ourselves.
is such a big shift in paradigm, and there's research to back that. Like, if teachers have an expectation that the student is doing well, like maybe they've been given information from somebody else, like, oh, this student, you can expect them to do well. That student actually does well, and if the teacher has expectation that the student doesn't do well, while the teacher presents with certain kind of energy that makes the student not do well. So this is a very real kind of phenomenon. It could be this very same student too.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And
Right.
this is happening in day-to-day life.
Right. So Joyce, thank you so much for being on this channel and presenting on this really enlightening concept. And I really want people to be able to hear this.
Oh, well, thanks, Leon, for having me on. And I appreciate your approach with getting all of these people on your channel to talk about things relating to mental health and diving into our human psyche more. It is admirable.
Yes, and you'll find all of Joyce's material down below in the description box too, and as well as her YouTube channel as well.